Sì, sì. Ludo? Ludo? Sono aperti? La mia di presentazione? Sì, Ian, con la K. Sì, Dario Piano. Ok, perfetto. Ah, sì, ho la fascia, questo è posto.
Sì, buonasera, scusate, prima di iniziare facciamo la foto con tutti i sindaci presenti, Roland.
So before starting, we take a group picture with all the mayors, Roland. So if mayors are there, we have Turbigo, Abbiategrasso, so the local host Massimo Spigaroli, the president of the Parma province, a representative of the regional council, the representative of International Cittaslow, and the mayor of Travacò, Sico Mario, and then we have the mayor of Salorno. Please come together for a group picture. Then we're going to take a picture with our international guests. They are not administrators. They represent universities from China and from Turkey. So good evening, everybody. Well, thanks to be here. So I kindly ask Mr. Spigaroli to join me here, as well as the president of the Province of Parma. So we have all worn jackets, but I don't know how long this will last. And tonight, well, this evening, we have a very dense agenda, a very interesting one. And I'd like to thank you for being here. And we are being streamed, but our foreign friends do not have the headsets, so please provide them with headsets. So a few introductory words, and then I will give the floor to our mayor, Mr. Massimo Spigaroli. And just a few introductory words. And a very well-known poet, a Greek poet in Olympia in 476 before Christ, said that water is the greatest thing of all. Well, certainly it was already a pretty bold statement, and we are there to talk about water. And according to another Greek philosopher, everything stems from water. So water is essential to life. So it is key in every sector of human life. And I think about springs, gardens, rivers, so a permanent source of inspiration. So we are here with International Cittaslow in Polesine Zibello for the Freshwater International Summit. We are here on a pretty hot day. It's July the 19th, but we have many people connected from remote, also from abroad, thanks to streaming. And so this shows once again the importance of such initiatives that are made to share knowledge, to share solutions, especially when it comes to our problems. So we are here to better understand how to preserve and keep superficial fresh water, so essentially of rivers and lakes. So we are here next to the Po River, and Mr. Mayor, shall we think that maybe in the future our great river won't be a great river any longer? So it will be a former great river? I don't know. I asked a question. There are problems to be fixed. So I'm here to ask the question to our guests. So what is the somehow primary utility? we are going to talk about the mouth of the Murray River, that is 3,700 kilometers long in Australia, and we're going to talk about First Nations, so the native people living there. Garandiere is the name of these people. And we forgot what they taught us. So to keep and preserve the heritage, the natural heritage, it is useful for us with a resilient balance. This is typical of very, very ancient cultures before history and economy were invented. And then so settling down along a river. So settling down, staying in a place, and so building up a community, a city means being connected to the preservation of the available natural resources. So our surrounding landscape is a landscape that have tamed somehow, but we need to respect, nature, even wild nature, and we could and should start from rivers. So today we have access to systemic data, and we have in this respect a very important contribution by universities. We can do so much more. In the past, we could just make calculations and estimates and try to use them as a basis for forecasts. So let's think about, the reproduction times, and let's think about hunting. There were rules. Let's think about the management of forests and, woods, and let's also think about substance farming. And at the same time, we have improved management so much more thanks to knowledge. So now we should transfer this knowledge to local administrators, to mayors, to communities. So in other words, this is what we would like to do. And Cittaslow, so slow cities in contact with science, but also with research, is very important because it's important to be curious and never be content and try always to learn more. So the Fresh Water Slow City Summit has always revolved around this. So I give now the floor to our host, Massimo Spigaroli, the mayor of Polesine Zibello, who strongly wanted this meeting and also this collective commitment on water. Thank you very much, Giorgio. And it is so important to share and exchange. And rivers have always been places of exchange, of new things coming. So the river has always been a source of new things. But times have changed. Rivers are not the same. But we need to keep contaminating with each other and contaminating with the outside world. So we are here because we need to share knowledge in a more effective way. And we have seamless communication systems, but it is so important to understand what is happening elsewhere. My mother used to say that those who copy come second. So copycats come second, but sometimes seeing the examples given by others is so important. And I heard this morning that there are islands that are regenerating water, and so there are interesting things happening all over the world. And for small communities, it is very important to exchange and to talk to other people from other communities. Exchanging means also being ambitious and trying also to share these new innovative ideas to the population, because it is up to mayors to do so. And when I was elected as mayor, the city had already joined the Slow City network. And so I thought it was very important to, get closer contact with these 300 cities all over the world. And thanks to your support, we have been able to get 1,700,000 euros of funds from the government, from the National Resilience and Recovery Plan. And we need to finish everything for June next year. And most of all, we need to commit to such projects. And our citizens sometimes do not fully understand what we are proposing, because if we propose the things that have been done in Australia, they say, but why Australia? They are so far away. But we need to believe in our projects, and also we need to manage wisely our communities. But if you do not do anything, well, this is a big mistake. So not doing anything is not good. So thank you, Giorgio. So this is the second edition of this international summit. We're very small. We are little ants, but we are ants, and we like to move a lot, and especially we look at the future. Thank you. Thank you very much, Massimo. And I give the floor to our International President, Mauro Migliorini from Asolo. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, for the invitation. I'd like to say thank all the participants for their presence. So I had prepared a few words as an introductory greeting, because I didn't want to talk too long. We have so many interesting speakers. They can tell us so much more about these key topics that are more important than ever today. And so that was my initial plan. And coming from Treviso, I stopped in a tourist center and in a nearby city, and picked up some leaflets, some tourist leaflets and brochures. Why? Well, because I wanted to see what these brochures and leaflet feature. This is tourist material of these places along the Po River course, but the same kind of thinking could be applied to many other places all over the world, and not just all over Italy. So, Food Valley Bike, so a food and wine trail along the Po River. So, lens of the Gonzaga family along the Po River. So, a journey among taste and nature, the typical products of the local villages. So you see the potential. Do you see the great potential from a tourist point of view that is represented by a river? So you can do so many things, you can live so many experiences. So an area that is along the shore of a lake or along the banks of a river has such a great potential. And we have been talking about this for a long time. And the Cittaslow network has always believed in this. In a nearby municipality, I visited a photo exhibition, and I saw a picture of a lido that used to exist along the Po River course, and there was an area for sun therapy. So 100 years ago, so people used to come along this area to have these sun treatments. Heliotherapy is called, to treat several illnesses, pulmonary illnesses, skin diseases. And that happened 100 years ago, not 1,000 years ago. But now it's not possible anymore, because the quality of the air and of the environment is not good enough. So could we maybe do something to slow down the degradation, or try to stop this degradation and improve the quality of the waters? of our areas, of our lands. Could we do something different to better manage the waters of our areas? And then glaciers are receding year after year on our Alps, and there are still people who dare to utter that climate change does not exist. I remember the Marmolada Mountains looking so very different 15 years ago. Today, I mean, makes my heart aching looking at those Alps. And let's think about the glaciers in the rest of Europe, not just on the Dolomites, but also in other major European and world resorts. There are areas of the world that are completely dry without water. Other areas are hit and struck by flash floods and heavy floodings. And so there are catastrophic natural events that are hitting more and more frequently our areas. So we should learn more from that. We should change our way of thinking as administrator, how to better manage our areas and also waters, water networks, and the water basins. Thank you very much. I wish you a very fruitful conference. And now we have the president of the province of Parma, Mr. Alessandro Fadda, who is also the mayor of Torrile, and then Andrea Massari, who is the regional councillor representing the president of the Emilia-Romagna region, Michele De Pascale. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm not wearing a jacket. I do apologize. So the province of Parma includes more than 400,000 residents and 44 municipalities. We have several rivers, Taro, Baganza, Enza, many resources. And today we can better understand and know our territory. So one of the few good things that COVID left us is the possibility to look more closely and appreciate what we have closest to home. So we can experience things today that were not so common in the past. We have overbooked art cities that are hit by over-tourism, and they are not able to manage over-tourism. But then here we have areas that are unique in terms of traditions and experiences. You can spend a day with a chef, or you can meet local housewives and live authentic local experiences. Our main goal is to better know each other. Such summits bring experiences, practices, new ideas, and sometimes you come across visionary ideas, pioneering ideas, but it's so important to learn what is being done in the rest of the world to improve our areas and our territories. That is why we are here today, to exchange ideas, experiences, practices, to improve our lives. I joined conferences in the past that were so useful. I could get inputs and ideas to improve our managing practices. Every administrator should leave an area better than how if they found them. And again, Pellegrino Parmense is another slow city in the province of Parma that did great things in this sense. So congratulations to our mayor for organizing such an important event here. This is not a small town. I mean, we can go far only together and only exchanging experiences. Thank you. Mr. Massari, Regional Council Member of Emilia-Romagna Region, the floor is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to greet you on behalf of Michele De Pascale, the President of Emilia-Romagna Region, who unfortunately could not join us here today. And I would also like to greet you on behalf of a former mayor who is a colleague today, the former mayor of Sant'Agata di Romagna, Alice Parma, and she knows I would be here. So 13 municipalities from Emilia-Romagna have joined the Slow City network, including Polesine Zibello and then Pellegrino Parmense. and Borgotaro in a mountain area, and Fontanellato. And Fontanellato has a beautiful medieval fortress surrounded by water, by the way. Right, so for Emilia-Romagna region, water management is a key topic, especially when it comes to the current term of the regional council. Our president has reaffirmed many times that his key issues for his term are healthcare services, and secondly, so improving soil protection. And Emilia-Romagna, and especially Romagna, was strongly, brutally hit by 4 floodings in 18 months. It was devastating. It was unexpected, surprising. The extent and intensity of those floodings was incredible. It was terrible. And Massimo Spigaroli knows very well that sometimes politicians talk about water management when there is too much water or when there is none. So again, if there is a lack of water and a record lack of water, then you know that politicians will talk about that. Or when there is a record Po flooding, and then people start having sort of having concerns about what could happen to people. So once these extremely dry periods, problems, or flooding issues, are overcome, then the debate stops. And that is why it is complicated then to deal with these issues, because then politicians are always a little bit worried by, competition and debate, but still, our region is reorganizing the territory management, and the bodies managing the areas will be reorganized, and so we are starting to think about landscape reorganization, so trying to see how the quality of life and the quality of living and of housing can go hand in hand with landscape preservation and restoration. So this is certainly a key topic. So we should abandon the emergency debate pattern. So we should try to talk about these topics also beyond emergency situations. So trying to rediscover territories, strengthening their resilience. I think that these are overlapping issues that could and should go hand in hand, and I hope that we will achieve this ambitious goal of improving the management of our territories and our landscape. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fadda. Thank you, Mr. Massari. Thank you for your words and ideas. And so certainly we are here to talk about these topics not from a political point of view, and certainly we're not here to talk about these emergencies, but certainly this is something that we could not forget, especially in case of emergencies, of course. But we should try to work on prevention, trying to make the right decisions, and we are here to exchange ideas in a cross-cutting way. And we are about to finish the official authoritative greetings. I call here on stage the Vice President of Cittaslow International. He comes from Abbiategrasso. And for those who will join the Po Festival this evening, he brought the famous risotto with hot gorgonzola cheese, top quality dish, the best traditional dish of Abbiategrasso. And I don't see Oscar Ragni. the mayor of Travacosico, Mario, and the friends of Travaco are more than welcome to join us here so that we can introduce them. So Travaco is in the Ticino area, is a border city, so out of Pavia, at the confluence between Ticino and Po, and so they came here sailing, so with a boat, and so wonderful. So I give you the floor in a second. So Vice President, I'll start with you. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'm extremely glad to be here with you, and we are here to talk about water, a key essential resource for life. I come from Abbiategrasso. Abbiategrasso is a city in the province of Milan, and it's along the Ticino River, and it is surrounded by the Naviglio Grande. That was a waterway designed by Leonardo da Vinci that was used to transport the pink marble to build the Milan Cathedral, and also the sand that was used to rebuild Milan after the war was transported through the Naviglio Grande Canal. And our city went through droughts with severe shortcomings and lacks of water and major problems in that respect. So these dry periods compromised our water system. So we are now trying to improve the availability of water for all our needs. The latest rainfall contributed to a slight improvement of the situation. And as to rainfall, well, a few years ago we had a twister, and we are still trying to clean up the forests, and we are removing 150,000 tons of timber, and we don't know where to dispose thereof. But still, we are still keeping an eye on the water resources. So you know that the lack of water poses a major threat to farming, but also to civic life, and can also increase the risk of fires. It is key to improve the sustainable water management strategy, and we have started smart investment policies to have smart irrigation systems, reducing waste and optimizing resources. Regional authorities, together to water managers, are making huge progress in that respect. For instance, we are reusing treated wastewaters, and we have smart irrigation systems. So for the public green areas, we have a first water table wells that have been created to get water for the irrigation, and we have done all that to reduce the environmental impact on our city. I'd like to share a few examples of what we did in Abbiategrasso recently to protect the environment. We have, for instance, created urban woods because that improves the oxygen quality. We have planted trees and plants in cooperation with the Ticino Park that partially financed this through the national funds, and that plays a key role when it comes to preserving biodiversity and mitigating the effects of climate change. And 42,000 square meter surface has been covered by almost 5,000 plants. On top of that, we have created a new area of 5,000 square meters thanks to the cooperation with Bicocca University of Milan, and we have planted as an experiment bushes and plants, including flowers that contribute to the preservation of biodiversity. It is key to keep working all together in order to protect in a sustainable way our water resources. That is the only way to guarantee a sustainable future for the next generations. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you to Walter Bertani. And so he made clear and practical examples. And so I give the floor to Mr. Ragni, and we thank you for coming here by boat. I don't know the distance, but certainly it was quite an adventure. Thanks for being here and for coming by boat. Thank you very much for your hospitality. Thanks to all of you. You have been so kind to host us because we decided the very last second to come by boat. So we are here to share with you a project and to somehow create a network of the municipalities in our area, in the Ticino area. So our goal is to get together all the relevant stakeholders, maybe to create in the future a brand connecting all the top stakeholders so that visitors can immediately recognize them when they come and visit our area. So thank you very much again, and I wish you a very fruitful summit. Thank you all. And now we can start the most scientific part of our meeting. And we have the first round with Italian speakers, with Paolo Angelini, Walter Maggi, and then we'll talk about the Po River Basin with Andrea Colombo and Dario Chian. And then we will delve into the scientific contribution with Professors Bartoli and Bolpagni from Parma University. I will introduce them properly and in a more detailed way later on. And then during the second part, we're going to have a round devoted to international experiences. We have Burakkose, so from the Cittaslow of Iznik in Turkey, and that has both a lake and a river. Then Keith Parks from the Darling, who is a tributary of Murray, and it is a river that crosses three nations, so Victoria, South Australia, and so we have a recorded video message because it would have been too late for them to join us live. And then we have the great honor to have with us Professor Deng Shihai from the Chinese city of Xi'an. The university is Yaptong. He's going to share with us very interesting examples of water treatment, very innovative treatments. And water treatment is very important, as Bigaroli said. And then we're going to have two PhD candidates, and then Roland Lazzari at the end. And so at the end, we're going to have two Italian examples suggesting good practices. So from the Adige Basin, so the mayor of Salerno, that we have already greeted, and then Alessandro Capati, the director of the Marmore Falls Hydra Museum. Two very interesting specific examples. So let's start with Paolo Angelini. Paolo Angelini doesn't need presentations. He is pretty well known. He is a high-ranking expert. He has been known in the field for many, many years because he has always worked both for the Ministry of the Environment, today is called the Ministry of the Environment and Energy Security, namely, but also he has worked for other departments and bodies, also when it comes to protection. He is also going to tell us more about the Alpine Convention. It is an agreement among 8 Alpine states, signed in 91 also by the EU. And by the way, the convention is now chaired by Italy, and so he will tell us more about what is being done to deal with these climate crisis and environmental crisis. Thank you.
Good afternoon, first of all, and I would like to thank the organizers and you all for hosting this very important meeting, because at a local level it is really important to take action. I'm going to talk about our experience with respect to the Alps and the follow-up. Why am I talking about the Alps? Because the Po River water mostly comes from the Alps and the glaciers in those mountains. And at this moment, we are experiencing an important problem. We've heard talking about the water scarcity in alpine areas, and there are big conflicts we will see between those who use water for farming, those who use water for energy production, and those who use water for tourism, and so on and so forth. In the Ticino area, we know that there will be a conflict with the tourism because they would like to have the lake water less deep to make it available for tourists, whereas agriculture farmers would like to have them available for farming, so they need more water. Having said that, I'm going to give you some figures, something that mentioned George already. The Alpine Convention involves 8 countries. We often think that the Alps are just in Italy, but no, there are other parts to the north and to the south, and we see a different perspective of the Alps from the one we are used to have. And there are 8 countries involved, and the treaty was also ratified at a European Union level. It was signed in 1991. So the signature was done in 1991. The first summit in the world in Rio de Janeiro was celebrated in 1992. And a few months after that, there was just a few months after the one from the Alpine Convention. So that's a very big impact it had. So we are talking about local commitment, contact, and ties between cities and countries from different areas. And so this provides a sort of a sub-regional framework in the Alpine area. You can see that the treaty concerns a bit of everything. It is the only treaty in the world, it is the first one that has an integrated approach. It is about the population, the culture in the Alps, forest preservation, and also the soil heritage and nature and energy and so on and so forth. I highlighted the item water management. That's what is written there. That is that we have to deal with it within the treaty to provide solutions to the water situation in general. This is a recent survey that was carried out on the wide range of water systems in the Alpine area. There are some that are highlighted in red, where the situation is really poor, and others have better quality. Here you see, perhaps Professor Maggi can tell us more about this, but I show here a figure updated to 2008 that shows how rainfall changed. Where there's a plus sign, it increased. Where there's the minus sign, you see the Padana Valley, it decreased. And here you can see the renewable energy sources in the alpine area. As you can see, there is a lot of water sources, the round circles, but there is a lot of concentration there. And I'm not showing you the big network that there's in the Alps for electricity conductors there and cables. In the Alpine Convention, a lot of work has been done over the last few years, and the status of water systems have been considered back in 2009. Between 2009 and 2019, we also worked to examine the production of energy from water sources, because there are a lot of systems that are very small that are at a disadvantage with respect to bigger systems. So there is not a scale economy in small systems that makes it possible to safeguard some environmental interests, whereas the big systems, the big installations have other problems. In 2020, with the help of France and the French presidency, we got to a political recommendation, a political declaration on water. It is a decision made by the governments at an international level, including the European Union, on what to do in this area. I didn't copy the whole declaration, but I've copied here the recommendations. That is to promote transnational cooperation, because there are many borders in the alpine areas. If you think of the 8 countries that are in that area, then long-term development in terms of management and sustainable development, and then implement nature-based solutions with the natural engineering, and then local support for adaptation. And I will insist on this because many times mitigation is mentioned in managing climate change, that is CO2 reduction, but then there is the issue of keeping things going, just like local administrations when it comes to adaptation. Local administrations are left alone, whereas funding should be provided to make adaptation works to manage climate change. Just consider, for example, how to manage the water systems in general. There is a platform that is available in the Alpine Convention. This platform consists of international experts. And here we have something that we referred to considerably, that is the cross-cutting feature and cross-fertilization between the different working groups. And there are commitments that have been made in this international treatment, and they aim to 2050 with reference to the recommendations that I mentioned before. I'm trying to give my presentation as fast as possible. We have tried to identify pathways that in some way can be helpful at a local level for those who work at a local level, not just at a central level. And in particular, we have also heard of risks. Of course, we have the pathways and the guidelines that have been designed that are also concerning risk. Risk may include landslides or glacier melting or even wood fires. The guidelines that have been developed within the Alpine Convention to support local administrations were presented for the first time at the COP20 in Lima about climate change. Basically, the different impacts and adaptation measures are considered in an attempt to capture all the opportunities. And this is called the Budoya Charter. It is a small town in the Friuli Venezia Giulia region, between that and the Veneto region. And it could be part of the the Slow City network, really. Maybe we have missed some slides, but I may add something, even if I can't see the slide that I had prepared, so I'm sorry about that. This initiative about the guidelines for adaptation to climate change in support of local administrators then developed micro projects that made it possible to have the publication of a support manual a couple of months ago. So there is this manual, support manual for local administrations in managing adaptation at a local level. This is to help and to provide concrete guidelines to local administrators. So these are all the actions coming from this international treaty with respect to water management. Here we have a lot of friends who are very familiar with the Alpine Convention, and it is possible to take all those who may think that they can take advantage of these results. Please don't be shy, come ahead and ask. Thank you, Paolo Angelini. That was very interesting. And now the floor goes to Professor Walter Maggi. I would like to thank Professor Walter Maggi for being here with us, Professor of Physics and Geography at the Bicocca University and President of the Italian Glaciological Committee. So please tell us what the situation is with our glaciers and tell us about the crisis with respect to glaciers. Thank you. I don't have a slideshow, but I may use the the previous one. If we go to the second slide, that would be great. Well, I haven't prepared a slideshow, but let me first thank the organizers for inviting me. I would like to thank the mayor and the communities, because especially in the slow cities are doing really an exceptional work. This is self-evident, but for somebody who is not so very familiar with that, it looks really extraordinary. As I am a university professor, when I'm given a microphone, then I warn you, you have a problem. I have just 8 minutes. Okay, too bad. So I deal with glaciers and the Italian Glaciological Foundation. It started in 1895. The study of alpine glaciers started since then. Not many people know about that, but there is a big group of people and volunteers who study alpine glaciers. You see where there's the white color is where glaciers are located, more or less. Well, that's the snow coverage. In Italy, there are about 900 glaciers, even if it is a number that may vary considerably. And we are working on this, but glaciers are much faster than we can work. Most of them are in the Alps. One is in the Gran Sasso in Italy. And within climate change that has been mentioned multiple times, these glaciers are having a crisis because of rising temperatures. Consider that temperatures in our planet increases by 1.4 degrees at a global level. In this general picture that you have, the increase of 2.2. If you consider the alpine area, that is the part in red, the increase is of 3 degrees. So it's twice as much with respect to the general situation. That has a really big impact. So what is inside that red line surrounding the area is impacted by this increase. Some months ago, we had 5,000 400 meters altitude where there was the 0-degree level. So the impact on glaciers is really outrageous. These glaciers are retracting. This is not new. I've been the president for 3 years in the foundation, but I've been working for more than 30 years in the field of climate change and environment, and I've been saying the same things over and over again. Glaciers are retracting. And, well, they are up there. That's inevitable, isn't it? But how does that happen? Maybe we can consider a more local interest. Well, they retract mostly in the summer season, in the dry season, and this important loss of mass that we can observe is basically water that ends up in torrents and rivers. You can't see that clearly, but up there in the Alpine area, the four biggest rivers in continental Europe start from there: Rhine, Rhone, and the Po. So one goes to the east, one to the east, to the west, one to the north, one to the south. That's easy. And these rivers are those that receive water melted from the glaciers. And what we are observing is that the glaciers are retracting, and there are all these problems for the mountain communities. We have the president the municipality of Salorn. I'm sure he knows very well what that means. If we have melting of the ice, we have water. If we don't have the glacier, we have a problem. So that water may cause problems at this level, then ends up in rivers. 2022, you all remember that very well for us. Glaciologists, it was a horrible year because basically in March there was no snow. So from March all the glaciers started melting. From March all glaciers starting decreasing in terms of size. And they lost almost twice as much of what they would normally lose in a normal climatic condition, and all that water ended up in the rivers. So if I think about some images of the Po River in 2022, well, I don't think there was a lot of water really in the Po River, with all the problems that occurred in managing that situation. I am from the Lombardy region. Maybe we were luckier because we have the big lakes that do help, but the mayor of Abbiategrasso is not really agreeing with that. But, well, we managed in some way, but we did have a crisis. But the little water that was in the river, an important part came from the glaciers. So it was an absurd situation because in a crisis situation, the glaciers were those that partly contributed to the amount of water that arrived. Of course, the water tables contributed too, but the snow was not there. The ice was the little water that could feed our rivers in the parts where there's a feeding, because where there's no feeding, the situation was either glacier water or zero water. So that is the situation that we could observe at that time. And the issue of glaciers, 3 minutes left, is this. The glaciers are retreating. They are getting smaller and smaller. They are losing the mass. So there will be less water. And future prospects say that 50% of alpine glaciers may disappear between 2015 and 2060. So the water won't be available at that point. 80% by 2100, but then it depends on what scenario you may consider. But the situation is something like this. So a big loss of a big amount of water that won't be possible to use. So this is a problem, and it is a situation that will continue to worsen. Either we change the trend of climate change, or the situation will continue to worsen. It is not easy to manage, especially to manage glaciers, because they're not just physical objects, they are ecosystems. We have colleagues here that could talk about that. And so we're not just losing water, we're losing ecosystems. And we did a European manifesto for the management of glaciers, really. And maybe later I will ask the president if he wants to sign the documents, and if you want, I can send you all the documents, and then you think about that. But it is really, really important. The management of glaciers is an important problem. It is not as complex as managing a river, probably, but the river is there, the river Po is there, it exists, whereas glaciers now exist, but tomorrow they may not exist anymore. So the communities that have to deal with glaciers may need to go through compulsory adjustments, compulsory adaptation. It is not a choice. They are forced to do a change. So that is the situation that I just want to mention. I don't want to be pessimistic, really, because then people may react negatively when they see me, but this is the situation. There is something that we are going to lose. So if the message today is water, that is solid water, it can be seen, you can touch it, it won't move today. But tomorrow, maybe it won't be possible to touch that because it will be disappeared. Thank you. Thank you, Walter Maggi. It is clear that in a few minutes it is difficult to give a full snapshot of a critical situation, but we may hint at some solutions. So now, Andrea Colombo, Secretary General of our authority in the basin of the Po River. So we go back to the Po River, and after the systemic repercussions of the accelerated melting of glaciers, let's hear what the situation is like with respect to water levels. And that's very clear data because it seems to be a systemic crisis, but we would like to know more about that. Thank you.
Thank you everybody. Thanks to Cittaslow. Hello everybody. I'll try to focus on the Po River. We are in Polesine Zibello, so I'll try to talk about the Po River, especially when it comes to the tasks of the district basin authority. And I have the honor to be the Secretary General of that because Mr. Prati retired. So, well, I'm playing this role in the wait of the election of a new Secretary General. Right, so very briefly, I'd like to remind you of the main tasks of the Basin Authority. So we deal with several things. We manage and assess the hydraulic risk in particular. We have to implement the specific EU directive on floods, so 2060, and try to do something about that, to deal with that, to work on prevention. And we are updating our planning activities in order to include all the river that had major floods in May 2023. And then we try to manage the lack of water resources. The Po district is a very complex one in terms of water quantities. It has major irrigation needs, but also water is needed for industrial purposes. But also then you have the minimum vital flow for a river that is essential for all the waterways downstream. So we have also an observatory keeping an eye on that. It is a body of our authority that specifically deals with that, because we have to balance all these water requests in such a complex context. And then there is quality. So Directive 2060 deals with the chemical but also ecological quality of waters, and also considers biodiversity. And then last but not least, we had the technical secretary of the MAB UNESCO reserve of the Great River. So you see the district is very large. It includes to 220 kilometers of Adriatic coast. It has a very complex area, 20 million inhabitants, and specifically 47% of animal farming of the national production, and then 37% of industry, 32% of farming activities, and 55% of hydroelectric energy production. So these are the key figures of the district. Here I put some slides on the Po River. For those of you who do not know that very well, it's important to see that. So you see the course is divided into three courses. We have the upper course that is pretty natural, the medium course that has been somehow changed after the First World War for navigation purposes, and then the lower course of the Po. So this is the upstream course. Here you see the confluence of Tanaro. So the bed is very natural, very dynamic. The morphology of rivers is very important for the environment. And so let's see more pictures. This is the Scrivia confluence. In Piacenza, we have these large meanders of the river that has been there forever. We have the Isola Serafini power station, and then this is a course that can be navigated, and then we have Ponte Lago Scuro, and here is the delta. Right, let's see this very interesting slide showing the spaces available along the river. So on the top right image you see the flood of 2000, when both banks were overflooded, well, were almost overflooded, so the containment barely succeeded. It's a pretty large area. And then we have the overflooding area, so the mobility range, because when we do our planning, it is very important to consider this morphological area for the river, so to guarantee a certain dynamism of the river, so opening the lateral, let's say, branches, so letting the river expand as much as it needs. But let's not forget the flash floods and the plain area that is 900 kilometers and includes many, many municipalities and province capitals is very fragile, because banks can be broken and over flooded. We had in 51 that event in Polesine di Vigo, so the basin authority deals with the hydraulic security of the territory, trying to find new innovative strategies to cope with that. I don't have the time to present them to you, the strategies, but we are now working a lot on the rivers in Romagna, where the embankments are very narrow and more dangerous. So let's see the historic evolution of the morphology of the riverbed. So let's have a look on the bottom. That was the course in green at the end of the 19th century, and then it got to narrower and narrower in order to make it navigable. So we lost a lot of space. So the expansion range was hardly reduced, and then so the bed became narrower, and so there was a bed erosion, the bottom erosion. So we moved from 30. We have a lowering of 6 meters, and that brought about several problems. The causes of these problems, of these changes, were aggregate extraction And then, so navigation arrangements, I don't have the time to talk about that, but it would be very interesting to better understand why. Because a river with many branches was turned into an only one and only course river. And then we have the barrage of Isola Serafini, that is a barrage to sediments, and then many other things done by man that have been done to promote the development of farming activities in that area. Let's see the effects of such modifications, a loss of naturalness, because you saw there were so many branches, especially upstream, but especially we lost a lot in specific parts. We have the instability of the foundations of the bridges because lowering the bed, you have stability problems of the bridges, but also of the banks, because sometimes the bank somehow coincides with the embankment area in a way that is dangerous. And then we have the sediment plan and the general program to manage this whole area, and these are topics that have been dealt with for many, many years. And I want to underscore the sediment management plan. That is very important because the idea is to recreate these mobility flooding areas that should be restored and recovered. So the idea is to somehow dismantle the parts in red to reactivate the lateral branches in order to correct the current structure. You see that in this case, the current goes against the bank, and then we have to reforest some areas and better control the plant species that develop along these areas. So a specific project has been financed by the National Resilience and Recovery Plan, and we have 56 sites for intervention that should aim at somehow improving the navigation, redeveloping these natural branches, but also we are going to work a lot on the reforestation of the river course. This project somehow makes hydrogeological security goes hand in hand with the ecosystem quality and water quality. Here you see the main goals of such activities, so water quality, restoration of ecosystems, nature enhancement, education, and awareness raising. And in particular, about this last topic, awareness raising, I want to talk about the map UNESCO. In 2019, this whole area, yeah, yeah, this whole area that goes from Parvia down to Rovigo has become a map UNESCO area. I think that 80 municipalities, 83 municipalities are involved, and this is part of the MAP UNESCO network in Italy, but also European, world ones. So the municipalities involved work on the issues that you see here, so environmental protection, environmental preservation, and this is strictly intertwined with our tasks, but also they work on local identity and cycle routes, museums, libraries, cultural exchanges. So this is a wide range of activities that are being promoted by the MAB UNESCO. And well, we are in Polesine. You see where the hour is. So we are almost at the center of this municipalities community. And We have worked on the coordination with other map areas in Italy. We have area in Veneto and another one in Piedmont, another one in Trentino. So you see in light blue the Po Grande. And we hope to enlarge this area and connect it westwards with the Ticino Reserve and eastwards with the Po Delta Reserve. Well, more details about involved municipalities. And 15 days ago here, there was a very important presentation of a piece of work carried out by the University of Ferrara by Professor Bianchi, namely, and this project was financed and promoted by the Basin Authority, and it dealt specifically with the Cittaslow network topics, so developing marginal areas, enhancing them, and promoting sustainable development from economic, social, and environmental point of view. And so I work in Parma, but I decided to live in Pellegrino Parmense, that is a slow city. And so when I visit these areas and leave the Apennines, I see so much common ground. These are marginal areas that are being depopulated, but we should try to work on the weaknesses in order to turn them into strengths to enhance the Po River plain that is strictly connected with nature. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Colombo. So we let you speak in additional minutes because you needed them. Thank you. So now it's time for Dario Chian from ERSAF, that is the regional entity for the farming and the forestry services for Lombardy region. So we've talked about the Emilia-Romagna region, but now let's talk about Lombardy and let's see what is happening also when it comes to Ticino River. Thank you. Thank you very much for the invite. I'm Dario Chian from ERSAF, and I've been dealing with water management for some years now. I also deal with rivers, not just about biodiversity in particular. We have a specific river contact group within ERSAF from 2011 onwards. And recently, we have developed several biodiversity projects, and so I'm very happy to be here to talk about these topics. So, river contracts, they have been already mentioned. What are they? So, one of the most difficult things to be done is to define such contracts. What are they? What they are for? So, there are many definitions. I've looked for one over the years, and at the end of the day, I think that the simplest definition is it's a working group. There is no formal definition. It's simply a working group. So several stakeholders get together, sit around the table, and say, okay, let's try to do something in order to preserve and promote a river and a basin related to it. So what you see here is the official definition that you find in a specific regulation, but I prefer the definition of a working group of people getting together to work together on something they really care for. So this is the whole river basin in all its extent and uses. Some things have already been mentioned. So what you see is what we usually learn at school. But we can't limit ourselves to such a vision because we know that water is being somehow transported from one place to another. So the river contract has to deal with water at large, so not just the water being part of a specific hydrographic basin. We need to consider all the uses of water for, industrial purposes, for farming, but also for leisure. But why do people need to agree upon a river contract? Well, mostly because they have needs that they share, that sometimes they overlap. So we all want better water management. We all want to manage the hydraulic risk, and we do not want our houses to be flooded by water. And for instance, Mr. Colombo showed you a slide listing all the topics related to a river. And so we also need to use rivers as tools to promote cultures, because sometimes along the course of a river you find things that are typical, traditional, historical, and defining the identity of a place, of a community. So we need to consider all these facets, and that is why we have come up with the river contracts concept. But that requires a change of paradigm, because we need, first of all, to agree on key values, simple concepts, but must to be agreed upon by all the relevant stakeholders, because they are the key guidelines guiding the work of the working group under signing the river contract. So a waterway is a living body, is a living entity. We should never ever forget that. And also the problems cannot be displaced somewhere else. We cannot simply move the problem somewhere else, maybe a little bit more downstream. And also, we need to try to overcome the administrative levels, limits. Let's try to go beyond the limits of terms and such things. And also, traditional solutions cannot be used any longer. Well, we cannot say we've always done like that, we need to keep doing like that. No, we cannot afford that. We can't. We simply can't, because rivers are ecosystems. We know that far too well. Even Mr. Colombo said it, so I don't want to go back to that. So it's not just about the wet part, but the whole ecosystem. But we jeopardized those ecosystems because of all the anthropic uses that have been overlapping: pollution, urban sprawling, restrictions, narrowing of the beds, reduction of the vegetation along the course of the rivers. But along the last 15, 20 years, climate change, has increased the complexity of such a context. We know that far too well, and every day climate change is worsening, and consequences and repercussions of such phenomenon are more and more evident. We never had flash floods before, for instance. So river contracts are working groups of relevant stakeholders getting together to improve the quality of a specific waterway, but also we have important legal milestones: the Water Directive, the Flood Directive, the Habitat Directive, and another list of pieces of legislation. We also have Article 68 bis of the Environmental Code. So again, you see there are many, many legal tools that specifically regulate this domain. Right, so let's think about this question. How can we cohabit all together? How can we share the territory with a river? Communities have always settled down along rivers. So we need to find new ways to live together with rivers, along with rivers. How can we protect ourselves? Well, it's not a matter of protecting ourselves, it's a matter of respecting the river. The river is an entity, is a living entity. Let's never forget that. I repeat this. We need to leave it space, the space it needs. We need to leave a river its own dynamics, its own life. Let the river live. And in Lombardy, we did many important things. We have almost 500 municipalities involved, so having river contracts, and almost half of the population of this region is covered by a river contract. And we have a brand new river contract for Ticino that has just been designed. It's pretty recent. And over the last 2 minutes, I'd like to give you some examples of what we did thanks to these river contracts, because practically what do these people do gathering around the table? Well, they came up with very practical things. This is Relambro. What is it about? Well, this is an ecological network concerning an urban area. So the basic idea is to combine the natural ecosystem waterway needs with urban needs, so with the urban setting. So we simply divided the course of the Lambro, 50 kilometers in the Milan area, to combine the needs of that area with the functional needs for urban purposes, but also for ecosystem purposes, so for the riverway itself. EPL, Estensione Parco Lambro, is a second project stemming from a river contract, and that was a real challenge because we wanted to rethink the function and vitality of the river within an urban context and in an innovative way, not using all the water in the bed. We first made a technical and economic feasibility study, and we shortlisted 13 areas that were eligible for such a change. So what did we do? 13 projects were adopted and were all coordinated. So we tried to promote a synergy. On the lowest part, you see a recreation of what Mr. Colombo showed on a different larger scale, but we tried to do the same in an urban context, a small, more active area. This is the first example that was implemented in Milan through a very specific technique. And then we have Life Climax PO, another major project dealing with adaptation to climate change. So the Basin Authority is the coordinator, and rivers play a key role in this project because in particular, we have to identify a specific example of ecosystem servicing. So we are looking for a new legal entity allowing the combination of ecosystem services with farming uses, avoiding the expropriation. And then we have the Palimpsest project, and again, another innovative project. The approach is always very disrupting, as the English say, because here the challenge is the following. How can art raise awareness about environmental issues? And these couple of artists come from Ireland, and they presented this impossible idea. The water of the Lambro River being drinking water, perfectly pure. It's a conceptual challenge because with the waste given us back by the river, we can do something to take care of the quality of the river water to make it drinkable. So, in other words, the river contracts are a tool, are not compulsory. Politics can play a role, and experts and professionals need to be available in order to support such a paradigm change. So thinking out of the box. And then the ownership. The ownership means involving the civil society, the local associations, and associations like Cittaslow have to be involved because the thrust and support our local communities and associations is, the key strategic and winning element to guarantee the success of such initiatives. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kian. And, well, we are all thinking about the connection between public administrators, communities, cities, being them slow cities or not, research entities and academic entities. And now we are going to have two professors, Marco Bartoli and Rossano Bolpagni. They come from the same department of Chemical, Life and Environmental Sustainability Sciences at University of Parma, and Professor Giacomo degli Antoni referred them. He is the coordinator of the framework agreement between the University of Parma and Cittaslow International, with specifically 7 departments. And so their scientific contribution is a proof of this somehow proximity between scientists on the one hand and solutions and communities on the other. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We are always extremely pleased to take part in events like this because they give us the opportunity to talk about what we do with passion. And we do research. We are very passionate with rivers and water systems. I'm from Mantua and a big fan of the Mincio River. The title of my presentation is a bit complex, but it can be translated in simpler terms. It is an attempt to deliver a very simple message. That is, a cultural gap must be filled as it moves us away from simple solutions for diffused communities that may have a general positive effect on the Po River, even if they're not carried out at the river itself. I'm starting with my personal experience at the time of my PhD. At the time, the problem was mostly due to the presence of a lot of algae in the river, in the Romagna coast. We could see these pictures from our boats. We could see a lot of organisms that died, fish and seafood, and in areas, in the coastal areas and far from the coastal areas. And the European community and Italy invested a lot of money to understand these phenomena, these extreme phenomena, and this solution emerged. We overcome the capacity of these rivers to manage the situation. So the time had come to stop investing in some types of studies, and we had to go inside the basin. And we wondered whether we were the only ones in this condition. It was not the case. You see, in Europe, the black triangles there mark studies concerning critical issues similar to the ones in the Po River, where there was disappearance of rare plants due to non-rare algae that are very opportunistic, that are synonym for bad quality water. And to a greater scale, you see the city in the picture is not a European city, to indicate that the problem with this blooming of algae is not just a local problem in Europe. And there is the risk of water pollution, which is strictly linked to farming. And this is not intentional, really. It is a side effect, an undesired effect, not an intentional one. Here you see the map of Europe in part of the slide. You see red and purple parts that are at greater risk of pollution of water because of nitrogen. nitrogen can be good for increasing agricultural production, but it can be very negative in terms of the quality of superficial water and the table water. So we have methods to calculate these situations and map them, and we see that the Padana land is not virtuous in this respect, and so we are in a slow city, but I have to go fast. I think to understand I'm slow by definition, but I can be fast. Also, phosphorus has a similar picture. In recent studies that we did with ERSA, highlight that in the Padana plain there are 10 times more phosphorus in the soil than there was 10 years ago. So we increased a lot the presence of phosphorus in the soil, and so this may pollute water. Climate change and the speed and the strength of a waterfall may cause erosion. So the fertilizers are then being disseminated in this way. So this is a challenge because a farmer may invest resources to fertilize, and then strong waterfall may transfer those fertilizers to other areas where they're not necessary with superficial water. Here is the Oglio River watershed is one of the least virtuous basins because it has an unsustainable farming system. Because if we have a certain amount of areas to use with fertilizers, it is clear that if we have a certain amount of animals, that should be proportionate in a way. But it is over-fertilized in this case, and we have problems of diffused pollution. At the same time, the basin of the Po River and the Oglio River is one of the most irrigated systems in the world. There are 13,000 kilometers of canals. This is an estimate, considering 156-kilometer length of this river. So this system is an added value, which is incredible with respect to the things that we're discussing today, because they offer remediation strategy that is unprecedented. We have the possibility to act on small systems, to have a domino effect, having an impact downstream with tangible effects. There are interventions that should be done in the Po River, as was mentioned before, and there are interventions that don't make any sense in the Po River. They should be done in smaller rivers because the interaction between water and the vegetal component may allow the elimination of pollutants, the decrease of erosion, the increase in transparency, and the preservation of biodiversity, which is one of our political challenges. We have to convince that biodiversity is a fundamental quantitative tool to improve the quality of our ecosystems. And to do this, and I end my presentation, I will say I end my presentation 3 or 4 times, so I keep you quiet. You see in the black and white images, after a few decades, everybody focuses on the circle. Of course, the small town becomes bigger, but look at the black lines. The black lines are trees, oak trees, and other types of trees present there that disappeared in a few decades. We live in one of the most productive areas in the planet. We have high quality food for sure, but we also live in an area where there is a paradox because excellent agriculture may cause crisis in the sources on which it depends, the quality of water, soil, deep and superficial water. And you also see how in the previous presentation, we could see the enthusiasm about that, and we see that even canals are important. Even the smallest canal may play a critical role because there is a lot of management. They have been oversimplified in their biodiversity and functioning in a way, and this eventually may determine a worsening of the water in the Po River, which is not a local situation. It is a diffused situation of a general oversimplification of the basin territory. So the second part on which I will focus for 30 seconds is a single example of a plant that we have been studying for years. It's just an example to say that we have to invest a lot of resources in the great variety of water plants that characterize and used to characterize even more in the past our rivers, because they serve a lot, they fulfill the incredible functions. I won't comment on this slide, but well, if you want to know more, we can get in touch in the next few weeks, months, and years. But there are hidden, invisible aspects of combined activities of bacteria and microalgae and fungi that are incredible and determine transparency effects, reducing heavy metals and removing nutrients, improving the quality of sediment and oxygen levels in water. It's a refuge for small invertebrated animals like small shrimps, and there's a great variety of autochthonous species, and sometimes this context of small canals have been oversimplified, and that's not good. These plants do miracles, basically. One out of everything, or out of all, they transfer oxygen. You see the roots of these plants, and you won't sleep tonight thinking about this miracle of a plant injecting oxygen to the sediments to detoxify them. And there's a lot of many other microorganisms with which it can interact. There is a worm, for example, which finds comfort in living all twinkled into those roots, and it can get the oxygen through the skin. They may seem insignificant things, but they are fantastic, really. There is a hidden world in every single small corner or every single small canal, and these are miracles not just for the scholars and those studying this, but because they explain the processes behind the importance of biodiversity. There is a wealth of functions, and it needs to have biologists and ecologists to understand them. So there is a big, important effect on greenhouse effects that are reduced. So if we eliminate these algae, it would be a mistake. The next two slides are about the cultural gap I was talking about. These are excerpts from newspapers talking about that show that the journalists don't know about the difference between an algae and a water plant. The plant I described this before, it described like an algae, and it says the opposite of reality. And citizens read this kind of information, and they may wonder, do journalists make mistakes? So, as a final take-home message, there is a problem of oversimplification in the territory. So we need a remediation action of our territories, of our communities, and I'm sure that the effects of these benefits will be tangible and visible in the Po River as well. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Professor Bartoli, because of your words of hope and positivity in a particularly complex world. It's a sort of conversion towards self-treatment, and also the focus on the secondary part of the network that is normally overlooked even within the basin. So thank you for that. Now, Professor Volpiani, environmental monitoring as a tool for knowledge and adaptation. The example of the Po River, data collection, numbers. Numbers are important indeed. I would like to thank you all, and I will follow up from Marco's presentation, highlighting what is important. It is necessary to relate factors and with relations that determine what my colleague has just shown. Oversimplification, environmental oversimplification, so the loss of security is critical. Reference has been made to the importance of regulating systems, but the message I want to share with you is that is this. If we want to work with rivers, we have to put rivers at the center. If we want to work with the nature, we have to put the nature at the center. The nature has to be the strategic object, referring to nature-based solutions as a general concept. We have to work with nature, for nature, not against nature. If we work against nature, it is clear that no strategic result can be obtained. And the topics that influence the distribution of plants and the biodiversity of water systems, which is fundamental for the maintenance of the quality of the ecosystem, of course, the climate crisis, biological invasions. Marco mentioned that. And from my perspective, I can add something more, which is about knowledge. Earlier, the need to have knowledge to work strategically was mentioned, and it is also important to monitor interventions over time. And in this respect, I would like to draw your attention to this information, that is, freshwater systems are there. We try to enhance cities that are linked to fresh water, but freshwater systems are losing their biodiversity more rapidly. Since 2020, the situation has been worsening. I don't want just to give bad news, but the point is that we really have to know a situation well. If we don't know about the situation, it's impossible to bring solutions. So knowing a situation is fundamental for subsequent steps. So we just can't hide our eyes, and we have to know that there is a general risk of conservation for freshwater ecosystems with rates that are 2-3 times higher than the marine or terrestrial ecosystems. This result is not unexpected. Our colleagues have already shown critical images of the status of other ecosystems. So rapidly, the first factor regulating the presence and the quality of water ecosystems is the availability of water. Here we have situations where there's a significant loss of the availability of water resources, and this drift in the availability is not just about the desert areas, but even other areas. We have situations where 50, 60 years ago we would call them desert area. So desertification is expanding, and it's becoming a typical feature of the entire Europe. It's not just the areas that used to be defined as deserts, with terrible effects about the availability of resources and the spaces for water organisms. It's not just about a matter of quality, but also a matter of quantity, but just also a matter of quality. This has been mentioned already. Look at this cartoon. In constructing a magical solution, the element that is found is not a unicorn, it is clean water. Clean water is almost something impossible to find there. However, we have to be aware of the fact that this situation is not determined by factors that are impossible to face, just like climate change, because climate change that runs the risk of becoming an element that stops us. How can we face climate change? But critical situations are generated by the way in which we decide to manage water resources. An example out of all is the water system in Peschiera. Marco said that he's a big fan of the Mincio River in that area. You are very familiar with the Lake Garda and the quality of that lake water. And when the water exits the lake, the very high quality of that water is channeled for irrigation, and just a minimal part is left in the Mincio River, supporting all the damp area of the north of Italy, or wetlands of north of Italy, and it also goes through the water management system in Peschiera, water treatment system in Peschiera, which is fundamental to reduce the impact, of course. So, but it's not the water treatment system in Peschiera, the critical point as such. It is the fact that we decide to use the sewage of Peschiera to put it back in the Mincio River, with domino effect there again, and preserving the quality water of the Lake Garda for irrigation. And it's not just about quantity, quality, but there's also physical alteration of the ecosystems. An intervention like this in the picture reduces enormously the space, the vital space of a river. So we can't think that we can safeguard water biodiversity, aquatic biodiversity, if we keep this kind of approach for safety, which is a fundamental factor, but it should be reconsidered in planning. I also show a historical image of the floodplain of the Po. We are near San Benedetto Po. You see the oversimplification of all the parts of the farm landscape. So we have quantity, quality, loss of ecosystems, and loss that has been recently assessed. Here you see a global picture accounting for the percentage of loss of wetlands surfaces. On average, it's about 70 and 80%. So we detracted space to freshwater biodiversity. It is clear that it can't be in a good conservation state. We have to change and turn the perspective upside down and to offer space, quantity, and quality to biodiversity, water biodiversity, because as Marco said before, biodiversity offers services that can't be replaced in any other way. The water resource that we drink every single day is there thanks to the physical and biological system that enables it to be preserved over time. So it is not by chance that the restoration law was put in place. So we have laws that are designed to safeguard resources, and this is one of the strategic pillars that from now to the next few years we will have to consider. And the positive point is that in Italy, as has been mentioned recently by the Secretary General, one of the strategic projects of the PNRR is the renaturation of the Po River area. We may talk about this in 10, 15 years. It's been a challenging project from all perspectives, scientific, technical, the interaction with the communities. So it's still ongoing, so maybe there's not the ideal conditions, but it is a project that will be recognized as a strategic project. 360 million euros invested in renaturation activity of the Po River area. So it is a one-of-a-kind action. It has been described already in the fundamental pillars, and the important element is that combined with this project, there is also a significant effort of charting and mapping and knowing, so of monitoring. So I would like to conclude my presentation that was meant to offer accurate information and updated information on the crisis of aquatic biodiversity with a positive message, acquiring data, associating with strategic projects, and having suitable monitoring systems that may be challenging and that can be used to supplement typical data. For example, the use of environmental DNA, the use of surveys, the use of metabolic studies. We will know how the Po River breathes, how the Po River is able to metabolize nitrogen and phosphorus received by farming. So this is going to be very fundamental. So the message is we are running out of time and we have to act now. How? We can use the model of the board, the dialogue board of the river contracts, and we have to be able to have a dialogue, to have all the stakeholders at the same table, to have an assessment of the situation without fearing the criticality of the situation. Only in this way will it be possible to find a solution. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Alessandro Volpiani, for mentioning all these even original aspects for non-experts. and having put together biology, science, and politics or operational policies in the community. Method. Slow City is innovation for processes in addition to tools. So the processes are also fundamental. Thank you. Now we move on to the international guests' presentations. We have Burak Koze from ISNIC, Slow City, and the translation will be delivered by Ilson Inamai. We have the representative of the Iznik city, which is an ancient city in Turkey that is very well known because of the ecumenic councils in 330 after Christ and one in 777 after Christ. It is an extraordinary city, Nicaea, and there's an important water system there. This is the Iznik Lake, used to be known as Ascania, next to Borsia, not far from Istanbul, where there is an underwater basilica, the Neophytus Basilica, that went underwater. So we're going to hear about the policies that have been enacted. You have to use the microphone depending on the language that you're going to use.
Parla senza microfono e tu traduci, se no non va nello streaming. Allora devi parlare con questo. Con una storia radicata da circa 2300 anni è una delle città.
Our city, as a millenary history, is one of the most important cities of Anatolia, and it was the capital of the Byzantine and Ottoman empires. It was known as Nicaea. The Iznik Lake is the biggest in the Bursa province, the fifth natural lake of fresh water of Turkey. It is one of the most important natural resources supporting the identity of our city thanks to its biodiversity, traditional fishing, water sports, and natural activities. So it's not just a water source, but also a key microclimate driver regulating the local climate. What you see on the screen is an underwater church founded in 2004, very important for Christianity, and the Pope wants to visit it in November, and we hope he will come and visit it. The first picture shows the moment of the discovery of the underwater church. The picture in the center was taken in some years ago, and the last one in 2025. Lake Iznik is receding. Over the last few years, there was a visible reduction of the water level, and General Directorate for Water Management has reduced the number of industrial licenses for this region.
Anche questo sono le cifre, come si dice, della pioggia
Here you see the rainfall levels
nel 1900, tra 1991 a
between
2020.
1991 and 2020.
Anche queste sono le cifre, la mappa con
This is a map
anno
showing
2025, giugno.
what happened during the first 6 months of 2025.
Vogliamo dire che il ritratto di acqua il ritratto di acqua di l'acqua di Isnik è molto pericoloso
So
perché
the water level
non ce l'ha
of the lake
pioggia come
is decreasing in a very dangerous way because the rainfall level has dropped.
educazione ambientale e processo rifiuto zero
We are working on environmental education and zero waste to process in schools. The municipality of Iznik started several activities.
Crediamo che il cambiamento in una società inizi con l'educazione di base
We
ai
think
bambini.
that it is important to start from children.
Cosa è una città
So
slow? Il
we
ciclo
teach them
dell'acqua e
what a
raccolta
Cittaslow is.
differenziata con
We
lezioni
teach them
pratiche sul campo.
waste sorting and hands-on activity, teaching them so what is important when it comes to environmental
Organizziamo attività
respect. We
educative
also
anche per i bambini
organize
per crescere
educational farming activities
della natura.
to
Queste attività
grow the
intendiamo
love for
insegnare
nature,
il
and these
valore
activities
della
are done
produzione
to teach the
fin
importance
dalla tenera età.
of nature protection since a very young age.
Abbiamo fondato un'unione per
We
la
have
protezione del
established
lago
a
di Isnik
union
e sensibilizzazione
for the
sull'acqua.
protection of the
Questa unione è
lake
stata
and
fondata
awareness-raising
come si dice,
activities.
l'unione per la protezione del lago di Isnik insieme
And
ai
a
comuni di
specific
Visto a
union
Base
was created with the nearby
a parte il
municipalities
sfondo opposto del lago.
that all they're all along the shores of the lake.
Gli ingegneri ambientali e gli esperti dell'unione
And the
monitoravano
environmental
regolarmente la qualità
engineers
dell'acqua del lago,
will
controllando
constantly
l'equilibrio
monitor
ecologico
the
dell'area
water level
circostante,
and check
identificando
the
anche
environmental level,
specifici i fattori di rischi e
trying to
propone
analyze
soluzioni
the
alle
risk factor
amministrazioni locali.
and proposing solutions to
Proteggere il
local
lago di Isnik
administrators,
significa proteggere la
because
natura, l'agricoltura,
it's important to do
il
that in order to
sostentamento,
protect
la
nature,
cultura e il
farming,
nostro futuro.
subsistence, and our future.
Abbiamo tante attività sostenibili lungo il lago.
We have
Invece di
many
eventi
sustainable
isolati
activities
si
along the
organizzano
lake
attività
shores.
tranquille lungo
We
il lago
carry
di Isnik,
out calm
rispettosi dell'ambiente
activities
e
that are
rafforzanti
respectful for the
legami
environment
sociali. Prima e
and
dopo la
strengthen the
proiezione
social
di
bonds.
cartoni animati per i
We
bambini,
also
assistiamo
screen
delle animazioni
cartoons and
educative
before
per
that
aumentare
educational
la
videos and
consapevolezza
tutorials
ambientale.
to work on awareness raising in children.
Sport acquatici e
And
partecipazione
we
giovanile
also
sul
try
lago di
to
Isnik
promote water
prevalentemente
sports,
sport acquatici
especially
acquatabili
for
come
youngsters, like
canottaggio, moto,
canoeing,
vela e
swimming,
paddleboard
sailing,
in
and
certi periodi
paddleboard.
dell'anno,
And in
in
some
realtà anche
periods
serie
of the
di eventi
year,
sportivi.
we also have major sports events.
Il messaggio che vogliamo trasmettere è se il tratto
So
dell'acqua nel
we
lago
really
di
want
Isnik è molto
to
pericoloso,
show you
un grande
that the
salvataggio
water
anche
level
per i
is
bambini, sport per
decreasing in a very worrying way, and this is a major problem also for, young generations and for nature, of course. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Burak, and the city of Iznik. Now we have Deng Shihai of Xiyang University from China, who is going to present his research project, a very interesting one, perfectly online with the things that we just heard.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Good afternoon, dear colleagues and friends. I'm so glad to have this chance to share our works have done in Cittaslow, China, and also we have done research works for the construction of the Cittaslow in China. So I have two parts. So I have two parts to show. The first part is the Yaxi International Cittaslow Development Report. In the plan, we have 5 parts of information, including the environmental protection, characteristic, project, and folk culture, ideological education, and also the promotion of Yaxi Cittaslow in China. But due to the time issue, I'd like to skip the first part, then we directly go to the second part, which is the research and development of the treatment technologies for the Cittaslow Township water pollution management, which we have done this work for 10 years, and the main technologies we have developed and applied in the Cittaslow water pollution management. So in the Yaxi Cittaslow in China, we also have a dense water network and abundant water resources. But this area is surrounded by the village and also the scenic area. So human activities, including the residential quarters, the aquaculture, and also the agriculture and tourism. So the pollution of the water is unavoidable. As we have detected, the water pollution mainly comes from the discharge of the treated waste, domestic sewage, and the agricultural and aquacultural non-point source discharge. And in China, in recent years, our discharge standards have been kept increasing, hard to reach. So the development of advanced technology for water treatment and also the remediate of the polluted water bodies is required. So the wastewater discharge standard mainly control the total nitrogen and the phosphorus. In the removal of total nitrogen and phosphorus, first denitrification process, we have the heterotrophic denitrification and autotrophic denitrification. For autotrophic denitrification, we have the advantages in the organic carbon source consumption and carbon emission, which we concern very seriously in China recently. And for the autotrophic denitrification, we have inorganic electron donor, including the sulfur, phosphorus, hydrogen, and the remnant iron. The remnant iron has advantages of safety and low cost among these electron donor. But we know that iron corrosion in water is quite slow, which will affect the denitrification process. So in our research, we just applied the galvanic cell reaction to generate ferrous iron and hydrogen from the zero-valent iron to increase the autotrophic denitrification rate in the wastewater treatment. Another advantage of this technology is that the ions released from the reaction can enhance the phosphorus removal. So we can solve the phosphorus removal and nitrogen removal at the same time. So on this basis, we developed the biocarrier and combined the biocarrier together with the biofilm for denitrification and phosphorus removal. In our research, we investigated the mechanisms of denitrification, phosphorus removal, and also the coupling mechanism between the biofilm and our biocarrier. Based on the development of the biocarrier and the coupling body of the carrier and our biofilm, we advanced the conventional wastewater treatment technologies, including the constructed wetland, artificial floating island, biological aerated filler, and AIO process. I'd like to mention that the constructed wetland and the artificial floating island is landscaped, which can meet the scenic requirement of our Cittaslow area. Also, to solve the problem of energy supply and the control problem of the urban of the rural area, we also developed the solar energy supplied water treatment system and the program controlled system. And in our work, the AI modeling training is continuously conducting in our treatment sites. So from our research work above, we can say that that is the systematic project for the Cittaslow water treatment. First, we need the advanced treatment technology to meet the increased nitrogen phosphorus removal requirements. And we need a landscape treatment technology to meet the scenic requirements of Cittaslow. Also, for the rural village or rural area, we need the solar energy supply the treatment technology. Also, AI-driven technology is required to solve the control problem in the rural area. So the above research we have cost more than 10 years and published over 80 papers, filed over 20 patents about this work. So. And we have applied these technologies in the construction of Cittaslow and many other practical projects for the water body remediation and wastewater treatment. Later on, my students will introduce our two main technologies have been applied in Cittaslow, which are artificial floating island and the constructed wetlands. So we are all working together to develop the international Cittaslow. Yeah, that's all for my presentation. And here, I would like to also show my welcome you to China to visit Cittaslow, China, and communicate with Xi'an Jiaotong University. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Don. Great. Now your colleague. Okay? Yeah. Please. Now we have two colleagues. Thank you to the professors, Deng Xiai, the PhD candidate Jin Yan, about electron transfer enhanced constructed wetlands for advanced treatment of sewage from villages and towns. Allora, prima Jin, okay? No,
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chen Yi, a PhD candidate from Xi'an Jiaotong University. Now I will present on electron transfer enhanced constructed wetlands for advanced treatment of sewage from villages and towns. Nowadays, environmental issue of township wastewater increasingly drawing attention. It posing health threats and ecological damage. Advanced nitrogen and phosphorus removal for township wastewater face a challenge due to its unstable and low carbon to nitrogen ratio. So we need to develop low, high efficient and low in energy and low carbon with water treatment technology. We utilize the constructed wetland enhanced by electron transfer materials, achieving stable operation in low temperature. Then we adding catalytics, iron and carbon biocarriers into constructed wetlands to address the problems of unstable CN ratio and inefficient carbon source. In Cittaslow city of China, mountain scenic area and Mujiazhuang scenic area have united constructed wetlands, and it also applied to ecological improvement projects of Euro River and ponds, and with advantages of water quality improvement, ecological integration, and economical benefits. That's all my representation. Thank you.
Please. And now the second PhD, Wenshan Zhao, about isola artificiale galleggiante rinforzata con trasferimento di elettroni e di massa per un'efficace bonifica paesaggistica dei corpi idrici. Wow, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Zhao Wenshan, a PhD candidate from Xi'an Jiaotong University. And today I would like to present my research on electron and mass transfer strength artificial floating island for efficient landscape water body remediation. And here is a report outline. Freshwater ecosystems are facing a crisis eutrophication. Traditional solutions often cause secondary pollution. So this is where our artificial floating islands offer the paradigm shift, combining the nature-based purification with engineered materials for sustainable remediation. Our recent research focuses on the ion-based materials to enhance the mass and electron transfer mechanisms of the islands. When water flows through the structures of the island, our materials can react effectively with the pollutants to remove the nitrogen and the phosphorus. And in practical applications, Cittaslow city in China often has employed our technology to enhance the water quality and create beautiful water landscapes. In conclusion, artificial floating islands open a new avenue for the landscape and integrated water remediation. Thank you for your attention.
Grazie. Due ingegneri.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have to switch microphone because of the two languages, Italian and English. So, very well. Now we have the video from our Australian colleagues. It's about 5 minutes. So, we will play the video after the presentation by Roland Lazzari. The video will be watched at the end. So now enhancing tourism and culture. And then next, Alessandro Capatti. Roland is the mayor of Salurn. So the Adige River is here, and the dam of Salorno shaped the environment, but we would like to know something about the slow station and the enhancement of this wonderful section of the basin.
Good evening, also from my side. Here you see our region where we are. This is the northeastern region of Italy, and this is our municipality. This is the southern municipality of the Bolzano province. We joined Cittaslow in 2015, so this year we celebrate our first 10 years of adhesion to this wonderful network. We're very happy because last year the General Assembly of Cittaslow, Italy was held in our municipality. Right. Here you see a picture of our little town, and you see the Adige River nearby. And I want to talk about environmental topics. I want to talk about hydrogeological issues. The last flood was in 1981, so not so long ago. Instead, today I'd like to talk about cycling tourism. We have the Claudia Augusta cycling route. It's the first cycling route built in Alto Adige. The project dates back to the 80s, and practically we have to date 150,000 people, so on an average, more than 400 people every day ride through it, with peaks in the spring and in the summer, with more than 1,000 people cycling through this route. And well, we try to find new ways to attract more visitors and more tourists to visit our Cittaslow Salorno municipality. So we designed and implemented several projects, including mobility. First of all, we requalified our train station, and so we were able to manage it directly. And we carried out a specific remediation project. In 2021, we became the railway station of the year for Alto Adige region. You see what we did to our railway station. And after that, we carried out another project dealing with the eco-sustainable mobility. So I show you in a few pictures what we did. We also involved schools, and we built bicycle boxes in our municipality. On top of that, we set up a cycling route connecting the river to our village that was inaugurated in 2019. And then we built an info point along the cycling route to encourage people to stop by and know more about what they can find in our municipality, because we have a lot of history and many interesting things to see. But this info point is not an ordinary one. We try to create an appealing facility, and as you can see, it is a pretty peculiar facility, providing also info to, cycling tourists. And so we hope to encourage visitors to make a stop to our town. We also have digital tools facilitating the, information dissemination. The project was very successful because today we welcome many cycling tourists and visitors making a stop, a so-called pit stop in our town. And that was possible thanks to the support and collaboration with many stakeholders and entities. Thank you very much. Thank you, Roland. Thank you for sharing this interesting strategy. So, as you saw, the Adige River runs close to the city, but not inside the city. So, it does not cross Salorno. So, the cycling route is close to the town. So, they needed a way to attract people to make a stop. And now I call here on stage Alessandro Capati, architect and director of the Idra Eco-Museum of the Marmore Waterfall. So they carried out a specific strategy to enhance the Marmore Falls. So the Marmore waterfalls are very well known, but they were very good at carrying out a very interesting initiative. Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation. It's a great honor for me to close this round of presentations. And so I'm the last obstacle between you and the risotto with gorgonzola cheese, so I'll try to be as short as possible. Right, so Marmore Falls. The Marmore Falls are very well known. They are beautiful. It's a great expression of the power and of nature, but instead, actually, they were created by man. So the Romans, so 2,300 years ago, created them. So it's the ancient falls in the world. So they have become a European heritage asset thanks to the many people that represented them and talked about them, such as Lord Byron. So these waterfalls were a fixed stop of the Grand Tour. And I have a beautiful anecdote to tell you because after the Romans, well, the action of man continued over nature. We had Benedictine cloisters, and so then we have the pontifical state, and then during the Renaissance, we have architects trying to solve the marshes problem that had been formed in that area, and so works are being carried out, and then we have the hydroelectric issue. And Terni was the capital of the waterways for the Romans, and the Terni becomes an industrial center, and so the most important Italian weapon production factory was supposed to be created there, and so anthropic action becomes heavier and heavier. And then we have the power generation station that is very important. So actually, the Marmore Falls have also been strictly intertwined with the territory. They have incredible history since the Roman times on. And so, in our opinion, it was very important to tell this very long and complex story. And thanks to Francesco Fioretti, my partner in crime, we decided to create this museum, the Hydra Museum. The museum tells this very multi-layered story. And we have no art exhibits. So we have no, handcraft things, objects. So we have set up an immersive multimedia experience, so stimulating the emotional involvement of the visitors. And this initiative is a private initiative. We didn't get any public money. We're very proud of that. And We have opened in October 2021, and in 2024 we had 20,000 visitors, but we hope to increase them. These are a few images of the museum. It was inaugurated after the COVID, so you can see people still wearing masks, and it was the opening time. So we have no exhibits, no objects on display. We have simply found a multimedia technological way to tell the story. So I'll try to tell you more about the peculiarity of this place. Didn't realize at the beginning that we had created a water museum, and then after that, we discovered that there are several water museums, and there is a Water Museums Global Network, including more than 70 water museums. And so the goal is to disseminate a new water culture because, these water museums are key hubs in contact with the civil society, the schools. So we are acknowledged as key places. And this is a slide that I always like to show because being part of this network let us travel around the world and talk about our museum. We were in Bali, in Dakar, we were at the Water Week in New York, at the World Water Forum. And so the final message of my presentation is that first and foremost, we should know history than to make a change. So if you point the QR code, you can download an application, so do not hesitate to use the QR code to download the application that has several interesting features. And then we understood from that onwards that water is a key resource that is at the heart of climate change. So we launched a water forum that will take place mid-October this year, and it is becoming a very, very major event. We want to talk about sustainability, water, and we want to launch Terni again as a water capital. And so we want really to create a major event. This is where it takes place, Villa Lago, a beautiful villa that is very close to the falls, and it is close to two dams and a major hydroelectric power station. In this villa is in Art Nouveau style, surrounded by a beautiful landscape, and this is where the forum takes place. And then we decided to create some signposting to enhance the surrounding landscape. We have augmented reality signposts, very advanced, very technological ones, and then we decided to launch a strategy for the surroundings. So this is strictly connected to the surrounding area. What is an eco-museum? So eco-museum doesn't mean ecological museum, but it's a local museum, a museum talking about the surrounding territory. So we wanted to talk about the identity of that place, of that area. And so the community is strictly involved and contributes to environmental protection and the enhancement of this heritage. This is the logo of the Terre di Idra Eco Museum, and so it depicts the Hydra monster with three hats. Hydra was the monster that Hercules fought against, And every time you cut one of the head would grow again. So it's a metaphor to tell the relation between man and water. So we decided to use this metaphor because we think that it's still very up to date. So we have the three heads of the Hydra representing the territory, the community, and the project, but also dealing with environmental protection, territory enhancement, and territorial marketing. So three is a key number for our initiative. On the right-hand side, you see a very recent map dating back to 2 months ago. Actually, the area covered by the museum should be much, much wider, but the rest of the area is in the nearby region, Lazio, and so it's not possible to do too many administration problems. And then we have become important relevant stakeholders. So Umbria region last year acknowledged us as key partners to enhance the local area. So we are part of a so-called agency dealing with the enhancement of this whole area. So we're now part of a much bigger process, and we're very proud of that because we have also been acknowledged as facilitators when it comes to disseminating the water culture. And so we represent this process, and we have favored the participation of the local stakeholders and the local community. Right. So another speaker already talked about the river contracts, and so I won't dwell on that. And so here you see a picture. If you download our app, you will find an animation, and you have a superhero. And so we always say that we always need to go back to our roots, our tradition, the things we belong to. We need to rediscover our history, otherwise we won't be able to develop a deep and authentic ecological sensitivity. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we have the video message from Australia. Thank you very much for your participation, for staying until the end. I think we heard very interesting things and many initiatives, many processes. And so this is the second summit, and we will organize the third edition of this summit. I don't see Massimo Spigaroli, but certainly he has gone somewhere to work. So we have this presentation. We have this Gulua video by the mayor of Alexandrina Gulua in the South Australia, the Adelaide area, for those knowing Australia. We have Kate Parks. So we have Jane French, the manager of the Goa Research Center. It's a very interesting research center that put together the concerns of the locals, Ram and Gary, and with a scientific research program. And they combine that with social inclusion, water management, and a specific approach on health, renaturation of the landscape. Right. So the basin of this river accounts for 1 million square meters, 14% of the whole Australia surface. It's a very important river, and so there is no river contract because it goes through 3 nations, and very often in Gulwa there is a total drought. So let's see the video.
Hello. It's a great pleasure to be presenting to you all from the other side of the world. My name is Jane French. I'm the Centre Manager of the CLIM Research Centre in Gulwa, South Australia, Australia. Before we start the short presentation today, I'd like to give thanks and love to our elders, ancestors and traditional landholders. They are the Ramanjeri and the Ngarrindjeri people. They belong to this land, and this land is part of all of our souls. We feel the roots of this land beneath our bare feet. We feel the footsteps of our ancestors in our spirit. We respect and acknowledge our elders for their courage, strength and resilience. We thank you for joining us to pay respect to the spirit of our ancestors who have nurtured this land for thousands of years. The CLIM Research Centre, located in Gulwa, South Australia, is an organisation focused on locally driven knowledge, development and sharing to address research gaps in the CLIM region. We acknowledge and work with the people of the Ngarrindjeri Nations and the First Nations also of the South East, who are the traditional owners of the land and the region in which we work. The role of the Research Centre is to understand and implement strategies to mitigate and adapt, develop collective solutions, be a platform for research, sharing knowledge and building capacity. We also have the privilege of working every day looking over the water in which we are connected to through our work and through our lives. We are situated at the very end of a system called the Murray-Darling Basin, Australia's largest river system, a system that covers just over 1 million square kilometres, or 14% of Australia's landmass. For further context about where we are, where we live and work is where a very famous film was shot in the mid-70s called Storm Boy, a beautiful depiction of this stunning and important part of the world. Our vision is for a vibrant, prosperous CLIM region with a healthy, productive ecosystem that champions communities and biodiversity in adapting to a changing climate. In collaboration with First Nations, local communities and scientists, we have co-developed a science program to address the critical needs of the region. This collaborative effort supports a well-informed community, empowering future generations to be part of the solution. Together, we're working on 29 projects with more than 150 scientists from across our partner organisations, local organisations and across the country to ensure that our region can thrive in the face of climate change. This slide shows the variety of gatherings and forums and small conferences that we facilitated to understand the knowledge gaps of our community, First Nations and management agencies, so we could prioritise our research topics. Our science program represents a well-rounded research agenda that aligns with the priorities of community and First Nations, as well as the management needs of research users in the face of a changing climate. We've engaged more than 1,000 people inputting into the science program to capture values and perspectives from community. Also from First Nations and management agencies to design, develop and deliver the research. Our research projects, like the people who work on them, are diverse, compelling and are deeply connected to ensuring the health and well-being of our water and the life that lives within and around it. Another slide which shows the various different ways that we're delivering our science, from collecting freshwater mussels to the release of a chestnut teal and understanding their migratory patterns, and also in the lab. Community and First Nations involvement is critical to our success. And we ensure this through ongoing activities, field trips, advisory forums, workshops, citizen science opportunities, and so much more. The CLIM Research Centre delivers independent, regionally driven, climate-focused research reflecting community and First Nations priorities and management needs, working with an inclusive and collaborative approach. We would love you to understand more about what we do. So here we have our website and you can follow us on Facebook. Thank you for affording us the time to showcase our research centre, our work and our passion. We wish you a very successful summit.
Thank you all. A big thank you to the speakers. And so please give back the headsets. And there's a little surprise with some wine that have been taken by boat by the Friends of Travaco. So wines from the Oltre Po. So enjoy the Po Festival and have a nice evening. Bye.
It is a slice of fat land, sprawled along the right bank of the great river Po, where there are long, straight streets. Small houses painted in red, yellow, and blue, and everything seems lost among the tree files. With these words, the writer Giovannino Guareschi, father of Don Camillo novels and son of this hidden